Hello, welcome to Red Fox Classics and the restoration of this Mk2 GT6 that's behind me. Now, last time we popped the body off because this car has had its body removed previously and checked the chassis was straight, which it is, fortunately, and did a little bit of repair, initial bit of repair to the bulkhead area where it had been dented, probably by the tyre hitting it after a vertical link snapped. So now we can get on with some real proper bodywork, which is very exciting. So what we're going to look at is what's going on with the bonnet. So this car is I call it stalled restoration that I bought, and it's been off the road since 1983. And at some point in its past, somebody has started to repair this wing, or repair the bonnet actually, because there's some work on the other side. Now, for reasons best known to themselves, they've taken the whole of this arch section off, and yeah, I can't quite figure out why, but that leaves us in a bit of a wobbly position, because the passenger side of the bonnet is fairly solid. It needs repair, but it's, you know, it's in the condition it came, or the orientation it came out of the factory with. And this obviously is very wobbly. So what I'm going to initially try and do is get the bonnet sat so it closes and is fitting as well as we can manage to body. Now the body, I've just been around this morning and I've got all of my body mounts in with fresh bolts. So the chassis is straight, the body is sitting where it's going to sit on the chassis when everything is done. So we can now fit the bonnet to it. Now the other thing is this bonnet tube and pivot hinge are clearly not the ones from this car because they are the wrong colour. That one is. So I don't know how straight, well I don't know how straight either of them are, but so there's lots of unknowns on this side of the car. So first thing to do is try and get the bonnet to sit nicely, and I've got to go and find the original bonnet prop because the one that was on the car when it was transported is very bent and was stopping the bonnet closing properly, and it's got some horrible bodge repair there. And I've found I had some bonnet cones, so I fit some new bonnet cones. And because you know there's lots of filth on the bonnet, I've been able to put them back pretty much exactly where they were when this car was last together. So assuming these haven't moved, assuming it was alright to start with, I'm hoping we can kind of drop this down and it's going to sit more or less in the right position. But anyway, I think that is enough talking. Let's get on and actually see how it looks. This is it's rather wonky. Yeah, there we go. You can see why it wasn't really working. Also did get a bit distracted. I had a finely bought stud extractor which turned up, so I gave it a go. And all these are loose, so thanks for the recommendation, Henry. That was a tool I've been meaning to buy for years. Never got around to it. Anyway, let's get the real bonnet prop on. Right, so I've got the bonnet stay on. I'm pretty sure this is now the right orientation. I compared it with the Spitfire, but the Spitfire had been in so many pieces so many times that no guarantees. Anyway, this did have that spacer attached at that end, so I think that's probably correct. Can't find it mentioned in the parts manual, but it kind of makes sense because this is now in a sensible line. Anyway, it fits. I have quite a large number of extra holes in here for reasons. I'll probably fill some of those up. And yeah, I've had it shut and it's not quite in the right place. So I think kind of the top needs to come this way. So I'm going to shuffle the bonnet cone inwards, possibly move the front forwards. As you can see there, there's the mark where the washer was, which would suggest the bonnet needs to come forwards, well downwards at the moment, but forwards in closed condition. So I shall keep fiddling till I get it more or less right. Right, so I've been playing with this bonnet. I've got myself, I noticed this when I was doing the chassis measurements, but the push tubes up here were missing. And I knew I'd already found them in the box's parts. And actually, the bolts that were fitted in these were way too short, so everything was squashed together. Anyway, got the crush tubes in now. I've got some hardware of the right length in, more or less. And I've been trying to get this passenger side of the bonnet to fit. Now, that there is looking, you know, it could get a little bit better, but it's looking alright. That scuttle gap's alright. Kind of ignoring the driver's side because it's really, nothing's connected to anything. So it's just not the time for it. And I've been fighting this, I've been trying to figure out why this is so huge. And then I remembered this is the replacement sill on this car. And I measured it. And this panel is that much, which is about ½ an inch, shorter than the factory panel on the driver's side. So it's just not fitted right. So I'm probably going to concentrate here on the door gap and the scuttle gap and ignore this, and then I can actually fit the sill to the wing rather than expecting them to be right straight away. And I think what my plan has to be for the passenger side is to get the panel that goes in here and get that at least temporarily fitted, and then that should give me enough structure, possibly the deep one as well, which is in this space here. And that should give me enough structure to kind of convince myself I can get this bonnet hinge and support tube in the right place, because obviously this needs to come back, but it's just too floppy to really try and fix it in any sort of position. So yeah, I think I'll have to go panel shopping for that section. I bought pretty much everything else except for that, and work from there. I might now look at the actual arch and see if some of that can be fixed in isolation, because there's, in this edge here, there's holes where the brackets bolt on, which can all be dealt with without, you know, kind of any worries about structure. Okay, so I've got a wheel arch pulled off the car, and it's not bad. I mean, obviously there's some holes here. They're they're pretty easy to do. This lip is looking pretty ratty, but that's not too difficult to fix. Now it's going to be a case of probably making this flatter bit of the lip just as one piece, using the shrinker stretcher to make that curve. I've got the replacement wing for this, so we can just kind of fit it to that off the car. And I'll probably just attempt to weld on this corner, blend it in like that, because this is pitted but doesn't look terrible. There's a little bit to fix up that end, which is not getting in the camera shot. There we are. A little bit there. Some more going on in this front end here. There may have been a patch that was ready to go there. Now, I'm not quite sure what this is clearly meant to go in here, but I don't really know why it will be cut like that. Seems a bit odd. So this is the guy who had it immediately before me. He started some bits and pieces and then moved on to something else. It's probably a decent enough starting point to get that tucked into there. Actually, looking up here, that seam seems a bit grotty, so I want to open that. I'm going to want to get that out and clean it up a bit. It just turns into a new lip on one side or the other. This I'm less sure about because there's a rust hole there. I just don't know how deep that's going to go. I sort of wonder where to find it out. It's the old stab it with a screwdriver test. Oh, there's a hole in there too. Obviously this is fixable, but it's kind of the question of what is lurking inside. Probably going to want to take a wire brush to it or something and see how much of it falls off.
I think that probably answers that question. I think that's going on the shopping list.
So I've not really managed to get on with much the past couple of days because I'm going away and just hasn't kind of lined up. But I've got a little bit of time now, so I'm just going to do kind of the easy start on this Wheelarch and deal with plating up these holes, because it should just be a rectangle and welding. Make sure we get the holes back in the right place.
Like halfway through filming doing this, and my camera battery ran out, and well, all my charger, another battery was packed because I'm going away, so I just got it finished, and that's the first repair to this Wheelarch done. So next to be that, which is again fairly trivial, and then there's all these bits around the edge and what have you. A little bit every day, and then eventually it gets done.
Okay, so I've been away, seen plenty of interesting things, none of them automotive related.
Down the left side, finally. The people on the
There's two there.
There's two together.
Together on the right. I don't know, just pick a side, you'll see something cool.
Now, let's figure out where we were. So I think the last thing I was doing was putting this little patch in. So there's that to do, and then there's plenty of things we'll actually be working on. I have ordered a replacement for this. I've just gone and bought a new one. I did spot some second-hand ones available, but it was difficult to tell. You know, I mean, they could be as bent or as rusty. So I went and got a new one. I've also ordered some more bits of panels, ones that go kind of in there. Started stripping down some bits of chrome to go off to be re-chromed. I have found someone who'll do Mazak, which is nice because, you know, things like these handles are a bit grotty and most places won't even try. So hope that goes well. Get that all finished up. I've also found this. Now these are really hard to come by in decent condition, and this one turns out to actually be in really good condition. It's a really early Spitfire one. You can tell that by this little hole here, which is part of the hood fastening mechanism. These little clips under here, which I'm not showing up. The one on the other side is actually still has the full clip bit on it. And there's no gutters. And I think the gutters were added late in Mk2 Spitfire production. Anyway, problem with it is I don't want to cut it up. It's actually it was ended up being like £61 delivered, and I thought it, you know, from the photos it looked pretty grotty, but it's not. It's got a little bit of rot through on the other side. So I think I might end up using it as a reference and building the rest of this. Or I might, you know, maybe another less, more one that I was more willing to sacrifice might turn up, and I can cut that up as for parts. But this one, it would be terrible. You know, I shouldn't do it. I don't want to do it because this is all surface rust, never in it solid, and it's one of the earlier ones, so less easy to find for someone. Anyway, right now let's go on, finish this job. Let's get the Wheelarch solid enough so that at least when I've got some more bits of bonnet, it's going to be easy enough to kind of get on with this section. Okay, so I've just gone ahead and got this little bit done. Just a slightly curved piece of metal setting, so it's not, you know, I didn't bother filming that. I'll do a bit more here though, because I've got this piece of sheet metal bent at an angle, and that's going to be my repair to get rid of this rotten joint here. And that's going to require me to get out the shrinker stretcher. In this case, should be just the stretcher, as I'm going to expand this bit where I've got my fingers, and that will curve the other edge to make that match. Curve the Wheelarch. And then I've got to go up there and do something very similar. Right, so I'm not sure how long I just spent talking to the camera that was off. They ran out of battery. Anyway, they're both primed. They just had a second coat, still need to dry a bit. But I'm going to get that in there. And possibly while that is drying, I can start to make the other piece, but I was kind of going to use that section. So I might have a look somewhere else on this wing. Wheelarch, whatever. did have a bit that the previous owner had started to make. Honestly, it's quite pitted metal. I know he liked to reuse. He scrounged a lot of metal, scrounging of metal from other Triumphs. But I think maybe this one's, maybe I'm better off. I'll just get a new piece. Anyway, that bit that I just showed was going to go there. So like that. Again, I'm not sure why would we do this. I also don't really know what shape that has. I'll just see if I can look on the other wheel arch quickly. Yeah, so our D plate would go there, which is that what that is the remnant of. So that would go down to there, presumably. I don't know why I'm looking at the. Don't know why I'm looking at the car. It doesn't have this bit. I have a Spitfire on the drive. Okay, so this is the bit we're looking at. And D panel goes in there. So this section of the wheel arch is then more or less flat till this point where it curves in and joins the outer wheel arch. Right, so that means probably make something that goes in there and then I don't know, what would I do? Because this is going to have to then kind of curve. What if I ignore this for the time being and just try and take a pattern off of the Spitfire and build at least kind of that bit and that bit to that shape, and then the kind of final, you know, I'm going to need to fix all this lip here and then obviously all the way down, and that I'll probably want to build to the wing. Kind of thinking the order I want to do this is get the panel that isn't here in, and I'm probably going to like fit these all temporarily using screws or T-codes or whatever. So I think I want to get that inner reinforcement panel in, and then probably reattach the wheel arch, because that is going to locate on that inner panel and the sort of reinforcement bit that's yeah, a little bit that goes in there. And obviously the holes drilled in the top of this wing are going to help me locate that exactly where it came from. And I'll probably be able to get the D plate at least temporarily fitted as well. And I think probably that's going to be my structure. So then like try and get that all in the right place, and then probably tacked in at least, and then take the outer wing off. Then I'm going to be able to build this wheel arch up to suit the new wing, and then kind of button that all up. So but that leaves us for the moment in, I think, still trying to build like this sort of chunk. So yeah, I think I'm going to try and take a paper pattern off the Spitfire and see how that goes. Okay, so that bit's done. Just trimmed it off after the fact to get that nice shape back. And now I think there's just enough of this left to kind of sneak in there. And needs a bit more of a stretch to build up the curve, but it's going to be the same sort of thing. So I think I will just get on and do that. I did try and make myself a bit of a pattern for the rest of the wheel arch. The kind of bigger chunk at the front. So after I've got that little bit of angle welded in, I will start on this, get a bit of metal cut out and start trying to shape it. So I've got a few little bits to do. This one I think we've seen. And I'm just splitting out some bits of this seam that are particularly wrong or starting to go and filling them in. I've got a bit more to do down there. And then onto this chunk. And I'm also, the more I'm looking at this, you know, there's lots of pitting here, so I think probably replacing the chunk of that lip would be a good plan. I'm getting to the point of wondering whether I should just replace this outer wheel arch, but it's not completely unsavable, so that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so I've been working through these bits, got that done, got this done. It's a bit of an awful grinding job that I think I should have actually made an angled bit and fitted it in, but it would have ended up nicer looking. So I've just got this little bit left to do. I'm sat thinking about this, and I'm wondering if actually I make it in bits rather than try and make bends that are going to be quite awkward for me to do with the equipment I've got. So that'll be kind of like one flat piece that does this curve, because that'd be quite easy. Or, you know, one piece that does this curve, because that's going to be quite easy to bend. And then weld a bit on the side at a right angle, dress that up, so that's going to form that lip. And then the same here, we're going to have that section there. But if I just make that piece and attach it on the side and dress the seam, maybe that's a better way to go about it. Anyway, I'll do this last little bit and then we can get on with something more interesting. Alright, so I'm still finishing off some little bits of the seam up the middle of the wheel arch. Just got some weld through primer drying on the last pieces I'm going to put in there, and I've got my pattern taken from the wheel arch of the Spitfire. So it's quite close to rectangular, and this bit is the outer wheel arch. And I think what I'm going to do is cut this piece, because this piece needs to kind of have a shallow bend there to kind of do a, you know, that sort of shape. And I don't have any way managing to do that and then also bend this edge over, because this needs to kind of be at that sort of angle. Right, okay, what do I need to replace? I need to replace this bit, definitely. Obviously, there's a chunk missing here, and I wanted to do it in one-ish piece because, you know, then there's less fiddling together tiny little repair panels, and loads of welding and grinding and all that. So, now I think I'm going to keep going. I'm going to make myself this bit. And then I might discard a reasonable amount of it, so I'm not cutting out this chunk of the wheel arch, the existing wheel arch, going to go up there. But I think I will do it in 3 pieces, so 1, 2, 3. Alright, so I've got my piece to start with cut out. So you see, I'm going to try and get these bends in. Then I'm going to weld something on the edge here, form this lip, and then I'm going to work on welding something on that edge to form that section there. We've kind of got our high and low here, and then that kind of curves like that. So it's kind of straight, bend this way, bend back that way, and then sort of see if we can curve that over. We're not going to do too much of that top bit. I'm not sure how viewable this is going to be because of my space constraints at the moment, but hopefully I'll start that bend. So actually that one needs to be that bit higher, so let's try again. It's a shame because the angle's nice. That was good, but bent. Or not parallel to our line, rather. It's alright, so can we do this then? So we're getting there, like that. That's now quite nice. I think it's also got a bit wonky here. Okay, now that's straight enough, it's just this needs to curve a bit more. Okay, so I'm starting to get that shape. Just need to kind of flatten out that bend and introduce a very, very subtle curve in here. Okay, so that's now sitting nicely against this panel. So what I'm going to do next is put that right angle lip on. I'm going to do that by just taking some scrap piece of metal, welding it on the side at a right angle, and then this can be kind of shaped down, tidied up to form that lip. So now I'm just going to mark where I need to trim away this, make this little flange where the D plate goes on. So I got that trimmed and marked up. And it's just this little bit here I'm making. So the tiny bend, so this bit's flat, and that's the crease there. And this is where the D plate goes on. I've just been getting it stalled trying to figure out this shape because I couldn't quite see it with just the paper. So that is going to be in there, and it's this inner bit that I'm kind of wondering about. So I'm just going to take some measurements, try and figure out where that edge should be. I've got it marked. This is where my template says the crease comes. It's probably not. It's not going to matter too much because, you know, obviously meeting up with this is the important thing. That I'm going to build to the outer wheel arch once I've got the wing on the GT6. So I'm just going to sit and have a bit of a measure, and we'll look at where I get to. Okay, so I kind of got a rough line, very rough line of where it wants to start tipping over. So I'm going to try and do that, start that curve just on that edge on this T-dolly. This is just a bit of round bar welded to a bit of steel, so it's nothing particularly fancy. So let's see if I can do that and go from there. It's going to make for a bit of a awkward weld, I guess, but this curve's a bit of a gosh, that's I lost my curve, hasn't it? Right, so I've got that starting to look quite reasonable, I think. And remember, of course, it's going to go in quite a way. I'm going to be cutting off this bit, but I think I'm going to try and dodge just inside of that lip and replace all of this, because this is pitted and I've made this shape. So I'm going to try and get all of that in, and I think what I'm going to do is try and get this fitted up to the wheel arch now, and then kind of build this once this panel is at least tacked in. And I think I'm also going to take off this to clean up inside the seam, because this looks quite dodgy too. So yeah, let's start fitting this up. Okay, so this is now clamped in place, so you see where it's actually fitting quite nicely around that curve, but I'm still going to try and kind of cut down somewhere. I've missed off this corner, so this factory pressing continues as far as I can manage. So probably do that trim down there and then start cutting it in so I can get it tacked. So that's about a bit of a chance to dry. So I got some primer on it, so let's get it put back together and get some welds in. These things are handy if you've not seen them before. Kind of, when you compress them, that becomes narrow. You can get it through a small hole, and then that comes back and pulls two pieces of metal together. And I meant I could take this off and put it back in exactly the right place. I think it took me the longest to learn about sheet metal welding, is it's not really enough to kind of just clamp it in place and start welding. You've got to keep checking that everything's nicely lined up as you get it locked in. The thing to do now is grind these all back, make sure the joint is still flush, it's not there for example, and kind of iterate like that, because that way you can actually get an invisible repair. And so that's what I'm going to do, because I do need to practice in doing this, and you know, I might actually look in the inner wheel arch at some point and see that I can't see. So that's in. I mean, there's still places it could be improved, could have been improved, but it is a Wheelarch, and I'm still learning, so, and that's pretty good. There's still quite a lot to do on this Wheelarch, really. I keep thinking it's almost done, but it's not. So there's this section here. I think replacing some of this here is going to be a good idea. And as I've been saying, I'm going to take this off and make sure I've got that seam cleaned out. And with that done, I think that's a good time to finish this episode. So next time we'll keep going on the Wheelarch. Maybe some new panels will have turned up, and we'll be able to progress to the bonnet, the rest of the bonnet. But anyway, thanks everyone for watching. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for subscribing. If you're not subscribed at this point, please consider doing so. It doesn't cost you anything, and it just helps this channel get a bit more recognition or notice. And I will see you next time.